A little recap first of last week. Our basic points that we said and we're going through is why is dating so difficult in 2020 and what we can do to fix that. The very first thing we mentioned was that if you're dating solely to date, that is going to make dating much more difficult, right? We're talking about what's going to make things easier in the long run for our dating, right? So that we don't have to go through so much difficulty and heartache. The second thing that we went through is the shaper. But in general, the shaper is somebody who always tries to shape a certain individual that they're going out with. And they don't really talk about it a lot, but they have the hope that they will be able to shape them. And they keep thinking, okay, there's something that I just don't like about this person, but I will shape them. And I'll keep dating them because there's so much I do like about this person. And that is a problem because it ends up being that you date for too long. We are talking about how we can date more efficiently, more effectively in 2020. And we don't want to date for no reason. And we know guaranteed that there are ways that make dating a lot easier. And we have the system that works. So, people do date to date solely without any thought of marriage at all. And that's just the reality in the world, the way it is. But that just it opens the world for more challenges. The minute that somebody is thinking, a college dater is different than somebody who's 40, who's really thinking that I need to get married. There's a limit to how long I can have children. I can't have children in a few years. So their whole thought process is going to be different. So we need to plug into that thought process. I don't mean that the minute that you go out, you have to think marriage, but dating for marriage is important. So those were the two things we spoke about so far. And let us dig right into the next things that we think that make dating so difficult in 2020 and what we can do to make them easier. So I'll give it to Shira to carry on and throw in some more ideas of why we think dating in 2020 can be and is so challenging.
Right. Would you like to maybe mention, the avoider, maybe the next two, so people know what to expect, at least from this session? I think we're going to go through at least two more, if not three.
Okay, so we will go through two or three more points that makes dating so difficult in 2020 and what we can do to avoid them. So the third thing is a mindset that people have, which is similar to the shaper, which is called the avoider. Okay, that's right. The title, it's the avoider. And the next thing is the defaulter.
Yep.
The defaulter is somebody who thinks that they can make someone or they can be in a perfect relationship. So that's the next type of mindset. And then the next mindset is the cynic. It's somebody who is cynical about dating in a certain aspect of it and therefore dates wrong as well with the wrong mindset. So we are going to go through those three things: the avoider, the defaulter, and the cynic. These are mindsets that cause us to date in unnecessary fashions. Let's go through them.
All right. So we're going to start with the avoider. So I would say the avoider is pretty similar to the shaper. He or she senses that there is some kind of an issue in the relationship. However, unlike the shaper, they actually choose to not focus on that problem, not focus on that, future deal breaker. And they typically, try to enjoy the relationship. They ignore the problem so they can actually stay in the relationship for longer term. But once he or she don't need the relationship anymore, or someone else better comes along, they will break it off. So there is something off in that relationship. And I'll give you an example. So we have Tom and we have Caitlin. I'll give you some background about these two individuals. This is not like real. We just made up names, but it's scenarios that happen in real life, obviously. So Tom is a young professional from Utah. He moved to LA right after business school to work at a startup company. All right. And I'll give you a little bit background about him. He grew up in a household where mother, father, both working full time, both, contributing to the, livelihood of the family, supporting the family. And he's very passionate about his career. He wants to make things work. He wants to be very successful, which is good. Now, we also have Caitlin. So he met her. Caitlin is a native Beverly Hills girl. She grew up in Beverly Hills. She went to school, and what she sees at home is, her dad, they have money. Her dad has a business, pretty successful. Her mom doesn't work, and she always saw herself as a stay-at-home mom living next to the family, meaning living in Beverly Hills, probably somewhere. And that's pretty much just a little background about each of them. Now, they met each other, like each other. They've been dating for, let's say, 10 months. Just giving you whatever. Everything is going good. Now, Caitlin comes to a point where, she's kind of like getting clear with the idea that, we should be moving on to like a serious step, like maybe talking about marriage already. But as soon as she starts doing that, he keeps saying, I'm not ready and I'm not sure yet. It's like unclear. And that happens a lot of times. And now let's go backwards a little bit. Tom didn't know, she mentioned already in the past, they've spoken, when they kind of like tried to get to know each other, what she would like to do in life and how she would see herself, in the future. So she said she would love to be a stay-at-home mom and not to work. And, Tom knows that her passion, and I think we mentioned it last week, is to have a partner that would be fully into his business, helping him together and making it like a family thing. And so his spouse, his wife, will need to be fully involved in what he's doing to make them both successful. So from the very beginning, so if you look at this relationship, you would see that Tom is a classic, avoider. He knows that there is a problem. They've spoken already, briefly. It's not like he opened it up and that's exactly the problem. When things gotten a little more serious after 3-4 months, he should have, and that's really the point. He should have like opened it up and start talking about, the dreams of what each one wants to be or how they want to vision their relationship or them, in life. To see how it's going to work. But his mindset was, he didn't want to deal with it. He was lonely. He was new to LA. It was convenient. It was fun. He liked hanging around and being with her, physically as well. So everything worked for him. So in a way, he was using her. But he also deep down knew that for marriage, there's no way. I mean, she has a different dream. He has a different dream. He cannot see it working. So that's typically an avoider situation where you have someone that they pretty much know that there is going to be a deal breaker. They can't see it happening, meaning marriage and serious, but they're still in the relationship for different reasons. And I would say that that's pretty much happens a lot, I would say, in our generation and, the society that we live in. People date for months and sometimes for years under the assumption that maybe time will bring them insights and clarity and maybe change things. And then they'll decide if to move towards it or to end the relationship. Sometimes it can take a few years. But we have to understand that clarity, it can come with time, obviously. I mean, time is a good thing for everything, but not too long. But especially with the avoider, it doesn't come with time because they will keep pushing it all the time. Clarity will never come until they decide they're actually working on themselves to learn how to commit and how to speak up and how to be clear with their visions and their views of how they want things without considering their own pleasure, because at the end of the day, they're only using, and they know, and the girl doesn't know anything. She really thinks, let's say in this case, Caitlyn completely ready to get married. She's thinking he's fully into her and they're going to make it work. But he knows there's no way, we're not doing this. There was a study that they did. They did some kind of like a speed dating series events, and they asked the participants who were participating, after 7 minutes of dating a person that they didn't know, they asked the person, would you like to date that person again? So they had to give an answer. They had to be decisive to say like either yes or no. And that's something that's probably in the avoider situation is probably going to be good in terms of learning how to commit and close. Even in business, you have to know how to close on business, because without the closing, you didn't seal the deal. You have no deal. You have nothing. So even when it comes to these things, you do have to learn how to commit and how to close on something, for good or for bad. If it's yes, yes. If it's no, no. But to let both sides to be free otherwise. So, and not waste time, because the whole idea is to date effectively in a way that you don't stay in dating forever, and you're focused on your goals. You're focused on finding the right person, and not investing in something that you know is not going to happen. So that's pretty much, I think, did I miss anything? I think that was the avoider. Is there anything you would like to add before we ask anyone?
Yeah, so just a point to throw in here, that the avoider is very similar to the shaper.
Yeah.
Both people have something that they need to speak about, and they're not doing it correctly.
Yes.
Okay, the shaper, and they have this thought of change and something that they don't like about the person, but they still remain in the relationship.
For different reasons.
And the avoider, exactly, and the avoider stays in the relationship as well, even though he knows that there's a problem here and he's not speaking about it. So whatever happens, you can't be remaining in a relationship when there's certain issues that you need to speak about. And the question is, you don't speak about it. Some things you don't speak about. Okay, the first date, second date, third date. No. Okay. But at a certain point, there's certain things that need to be spoken about.
I wanted to add in terms of timeline, because a lot of times people ask, so, how long do you try and figure out all these like deal breakers and stuff? So I read quite a few studies in the book that we're working with, the speed dating one. And it says that you really don't need more than 3 to 4 months maximum to figure out about the big things in the picture. Like, because if you're dating really, focusing on the long-term relationship, you will within 3-4 months start talking about serious stuff. Otherwise, you're really wasting your time. You're going to start talking about the future, about what you want, what she wants, all that kind of stuff that you will cover. So at that point, you'll find out whether there's a conflict with, profession or relocation, or, when it comes to medical school. So residency, people have tons of those kind of questions, but you got to figure it out at the beginning. And then even though it's not the easiest, because sometimes you do want to stay in the relationship because it's fun and you like the person, but there's something that will be really hard after, which if you cut it off now, you would probably save a lot of heartache for yourself and save time, move on to the next person. Right?
Does anyone have anything to throw in, or any other thoughts that they want to share about this specific mindset that we're talking about?
Yeah. Or example, anything you would like to add?
It's pretty impossible to like every single thing about someone.
That's true. That's true. It is impossible. And at a certain point, when you marry someone, you are making a certain sense of commitment, which is in some way with faith. There is an element of faith. I don't believe that somebody who's married for 1 year knows his wife as well as he knows her when he's going to be 90 years old.
Or before they got married.
Or before they got married. So yeah. By default, there's no way that you can perfectly know someone unless you're married with them a lifetime. I mean, I'm learning about my relationship all the time. And I'm growing in my relationship. So if the notion that I need to know I need to perfectly go into this relationship, which is
knowing everything
is not possible. And that's already the defaulter mindset, which is also a mindset which is unhealthy that we have today.
Yeah.
And it makes our dating so much more difficult.
I would add just, to what you said and strengthen that. So yes, of course, there's no way we know everything. I don't believe we can know everything before you actually marry the person. But what I was saying before is something that you already realize. You already know that you realize there is a conflict. Because if you don't see the conflict, then I'm not saying it's an avoider. I'm not saying there's a problem yet. Then when the problem rises up, it has to be dealt at the right time with the right tools or whatever it is, whether it's already in marriage or before marriage. There's counseling. I mean, there's ways to make things work if both parties are up for it. But I'm talking about things that, you're not committed to the person for life yet. You're dating someone. Within a few months, you can figure out about the big picture. If they mention something, not to ignore it. If they mention, I want to move to New York, and they're not even planning to stay in LA, and for the other side, it's a complete no way, I'm not moving anywhere, then that should be something they have to consider before, moving on with a relationship.
That's a very important point what Shira was throwing in here. I'll just emphasize that as well, which is that if there's nothing wrong in your mind, you don't have to think that maybe there's something wrong in going up. Maybe there's something I don't know. It's,
we can't go crazy. I don't think.
I'm dating someone. I see everything's good. I see everything makes sense, and I keep dating, and I see everything. But I constantly think, but maybe there's a problem. So let me see. Can't be that this is such a nice person. Let me continue. That's nothing to do with an avoider. That's actually completely different.
And in terms of that, if I can add real quick before we move on to the next thing, that's why, let's say in different circles, let's say in the religious circles, before marriage, and the same way I did with you. I mean, I made some real, not me, but it was more my mom. But anyone who people choose to do that job for them, to really find out about the person. I'm not saying go crazy, but find out a little bit about the person, that they're not right out of jail or something. You just want to find out about the personality. Again, I'm not taking everything that people say fully 100% and believe everything. But if there is a red flag or something you should be aware of, or I don't know, mental problem, you are gonna find out. Probably you could find out, and it's things that when you meet the person, you don't always know. So when you talk to other people, you do.
So that was actually one thing that I was saying is really good about dating apps, is that there's algorithms. Algorithms is basically doing some of the work for you before you actually date. There's a similarity in this area, the similarity in that area. So there is algorithms is something that we've always been doing throughout our history.
It's
a Jewish concept, which is, okay, what background do you have? What idea do you have? What education do you have? And let's put them together. You're very similar. So that's, the concept of algorithms is very, very respected. We like it. But at the end of the day, if there is a problem, they need to be spoken about at some point. We truly believe that there's an environment where people say, oh, this relationship is so good, I'll avoid talking about certain issues and wait for them. At a certain point, these need to be spoken about.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions, thoughts?
Well, just what you were saying about, I think there's a balance that has to be there. So you want to have a relationship where you're with somebody that is similar to you in some fundamental ways. But then I also think that having someone that can bring something new to your life is very important as well. So I think that, the background check part of it is important, I guess, knowing that they're a good person or whatever those values are for you. But then I do think that there's something nice about learning from somebody else and growing with them. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in trying to find red flags or find flaws in other people that our focus can shift to that negative point of view versus the positive of, look at all these wonderful qualities that this person has. So I think there's the balance of that.
I agree.
Definitely.
We definitely believe that by default, especially from a religious perspective, men and women are very different. There are many, many differences. No matter what happens, when you date somebody, you are going to date somebody who's completely different to you. There's no way that they're the same.
They will definitely bring a lot of new things to the relationship because there's no way you're going to find someone that's really, really, really so similar to you and it's two different genders. What I was meaning before is to find out certain things that could be red flags. But again, like we said, the point is not looking for the problems. It's just making sure, hey, I'm getting into something healthy, something okay. And then you find out when you meet the person, because there's nothing like actually being with a person to learn more about the person. Whatever people say is not the same as what you are when you're actually experiencing them and them around other people. You see their behavior, which is, I think is very important. But I agree with the balance.
Question for you. So if you're dating these days on apps, right? Because right now we're not able to meet with people in person.
Yep.
So we can, let's say we FaceTime or you can have that sort of interaction, but you're not able to see them in their environment. I think that's an essential part of dating, like you said, seeing how they interact with other people, seeing how someone treats a waiter, I think is like one of the most important things on a date. If you see a guy who's very rude to a waiter, that's a great indicator that they don't value, treating others kindly around them. You can't have any of those, like those little things right now, dating someone online.
That's right. And that's why I really think that dating now at this time where there's no way, unless if it's someone local and you can somehow make it work, I don't know. But if it's not, it's very difficult. I don't know if it's the right thing to meet someone and speaking with them for months, like building up the imagination of who they are. You don't really know who they are. You don't really see them in person. You don't really see their behavior. You don't even know what they make you feel like when you're around them. You don't know anything about them. You just, you do. You're intellectually like connecting to them. You're getting to know them. But it's very different than really knowing a person face to face. So I really agree. It's very challenging. So if someone already they dated before and they are in a relationship, that's a different story. So they're maintaining the relationship and they find ways to make it work. But to find someone completely different that is not local, I don't know if it's recommended. At least at this time, because it's really hard. That's why I really feel like that the time that we have now is super special and the best time for every person, to really learn about themselves, learn about who they are, what they want, because there's not much else you could do. So at least when it's time for you to focus on yourself, you can. Because when we have other distractions in life and we're working and it's all the events and dating, all that, people don't really have time for that. So now really is the best time to focus on ourselves. And then hopefully when things clear up, and it's going to be hopefully really soon, it's going to be, possible to see people face to face, then a person will be an expert. They'll at least know what they're looking for. They'll focus more. That's personally my opinion.
Rabbi Jack, this is tangential to your point, but I think that there's plenty of reasons not to like dating apps, although we should probably not get into that conversation right now.
No, I agree. There are many aspects that we don't agree with the dating apps, but the one thing that I think is very similar to Judaism is the algorithm aspect. So that was the one thing that I brought up.
That could work, but I feel like I don't think people anyway fill up the right information most of the time. So you could get traction of not the right people when it comes to the apps. So the truth is, we never know.
Well, the concept of algorithms is good.
That's I agree with.
I don't know how the system works, but I'm just saying the algorithm concept is good.
Right.
I don't want to get into dating apps. It's another whole discussion.
We will talk about it eventually.
We will talk about it. The next thing is the defaulter, okay? Now, it's very similar to what we've been basically speaking about, which is the thought or the mindset that I need to be more in a relationship with this person to know them more. And what happens is you can have somebody who's dating for 5 or 6 months and they're like, I'm not sure yet. I don't know. You know what? Let's give it more time. Now, time is very important. I believe in time. Get me right so that you don't argue with me and beat me up for this. Okay? But we believe in giving your dating time in order to get clarity of knowledge of who this person is. And time is important for knowledge. That will give you clarity. If I don't know this person enough, so I need more time, right? Time is good in order to get knowledge, and that will give you more clarity. However, time in order to deepen my relationship, I know the person already. I just want to have a deeper relationship with this person, will give me confusion. Okay, so time in order to know the person will give me clarity. Time in order to deepen the relationship will give me confusion. Let me explain what I mean. So if I'm dating in order to just deepen my relationship because I think to myself, I need to feel more of a relationship. I need to really know them well. I need to really live with them well. I need to, go through life with them well. You can't be married before you're married. And the big problem of that is that you can actually be committed to somebody for no reason at all. Let me give you an example, okay? So David is going out with Sarah and they are in crazy love. There's so much feelings and chemistry right from the beginning. It's amazing. Everyone says they're so made for each other. And they go out. There's one or two issues after a month or two, but they are really doing well. They work so well together. He's an actor and she is in marketing and sales, and she can help him. She compromises him and he's loving it. His business is thriving. They move in together and they start living together and they come really close. Everyone says, wow, you're made for each other. They end up dating for 5 years. Okay, let's imagine this scenario. They're dating for 5 years. Everyone's looking and you're like, wow, this is the most amazing couple. They're now 33 years old. They've been dating for 5 years. Suddenly, Sarah says to David, I think it's time that we get married. And David says to himself, you know what? It's been such a deep relationship. I'm going to have to do it. Yes, there's been issues, but how am I ever going to, it's 33. I've been dating for 5 years. I need to do it. This is the next stage. And they move on to the next stage. Let's imagine this case, extreme case. And after 2 or 3 years of being married, David decides to get divorced. And you look at David and you say, what is going on? You guys were so in love for 5 years. What happened? And David says, well, I'll tell you something. When I walked down that aisle, I knew that maybe she wasn't the one. I was actually thinking she's not the one. But we just went too far into the relationship and made that commitment. I know this is an extreme example, but I'm trying to give you the feel of what this is about. When somebody deepens their relationship, they deepen the confusion. It's harder to get out of it.
Yeah, you're more invested.
I'm more invested. She's been working for my company for 2 years now. We've been living together. We've been labeled by everybody as the cutest couple. And now it's much more difficult to get committed or to leave if I need to. So what we believe is that time will give you clarity in knowledge of the person, but it will not give you clarity in deepening the relationship with the person. In fact, it will give you more confusion. And again, the mindset is, if I'm dating for the right reasons, and I'm dating to really consider this person as my spouse, I'm not 16 dating anymore, I'm not 18 and I'm dating, I'm now 30 and I'm dating, so I'm really dating for the right reasons, then I'm really going to question these points properly. And I would, before I even enter and mesh together in this serious relationship, I would already recognize if this is worthy of jumping further into. There's many times where we jump too far into the relationship before we've even made that right commitment yet. We've not even made the commitment and we're pushing the relationship too far. And the reason that people do that is because of this mindset that we need to try each other out first. We need to know each other well first. We need to live with each other. We need to, and it doesn't necessarily, it's possible, by the way, that in all these situations, someone will get married, right? It's possible if you date to date, you'll eventually get married. It's possible if you have a shaper's mentality, you'll still get married. It's possible if you're an avoider, you'll still get married. And it's definitely possible that if you're a defaulter, you live together, that you still can get married, but it just makes it so much harder. And And what could really happen is you will get married and you could realize that you got pushed into a relationship you didn't even want in the first place. Does this make sense to anybody, or do you have questions about this? Because I really believe, and we believe, that defaulter mentality is a real issue in our society today, and we need to remove that. We need to kind of work away from that, which is, I need to know the person, not be in a relationship or a marriage with the person in order to marry them. Are there any thoughts or ideas that you want to share about that idea?
How do you know if the red flag or conflict should be important enough to not be with the person?
It depends on your values.
It depends on your values, and we have to talk about what is a red flag. Like what Natasha was saying, not everything is a red flag. Just because they differ from you in some ways, that's not a red flag. Okay, in general, we'll just quickly say from 1 to 10, there's certain things that there's about the person, right? Nowadays, people rate people. So from 1 to 10, not just physically, there's, in general, attraction. How do I feel when I'm around this person? If I feel between 5 and 10, so then there's a way of making this work. If I feel below 5, anything between 0 and 5, then we find it's very difficult to move that up to a stage where it's really compatible for marriage. Okay, that's just a general statement. We need to talk about real red flags, like serious cases of anger and so on. We need to speak about that in general. That's another discussion. But in general, what I would say is there's certain aspects of the person which you can move up and you can grow in through marriage. And there's certain aspects which depends also on your values that you have to say whether it's a 0 to 5 or a 5 to 10. If it's between 5 and 10, it's something that you can work on and grow with.
Why is it called defaulter? I kind of got hung up on the name.
Default is like the perfect setting, you know, when you have the default.
Okay, so like in that case, the guy stuck with it for 5 years.
Exactly, because he's waiting for that default relationship to be able to make that commitment. You ask him, so you guys are so in love, so when are you going to get married? So he says, I don't know, I'm waiting, I need more time. So you ask him, what do you need time for? Yeah, I don't know, I just need more time, I need more time. Well, if you need more time to know who their dad is, then get to know who their dad is. You need to know their mom, fine, get to know their mom. What do you need the time for?
Sort of the avoider, though, if you think about it.
So the avoider actually has a problem, right? It is sort of, they're all the same thing, right? But the avoider has a problem in front of him and he's just not talking about it. The defaulter has no problem at all. He just has this mindset that I need to deepen my relationship further and further. What I'm trying to point out here is, in an extreme case, obviously, that being deeper in a relationship, when you start even your first date, the mindset shouldn't be, okay, how deep can I get into this relationship before I can commit to marriage with this person? You know, I believe you don't need more than 6 months, at least 6 months. It shouldn't be less than that. Not in the religious world, right? At least 6 months to date someone and recognize if they're for you or not. From 6 months, in the 6th month, you should be able to tell me whether you're able to marry that person or not. If not, there's a defaulter mindset in the back of your mind, which says, I'm dating this person, everything's great. I know everything about them. We've spoken about his mom, his sister, his brother, and his dad 1,000 times. We've done everything together in 6 months. There's nothing more we can speak about. At that point, there's also the defaulter mindset in the back of his mind, which says, let me continue deep in the relationship. I don't feel the depth of this relationship. Attraction there is. Chemistry there is. But let me deepen the relationship. And by the way, chemistry, we'll speak about it. It's one of the topics as well, which chemistry is not the only definition of love. Okay? That's not the only definition of love. Because chemistry is like, whoa, at the beginning, and then it goes down eventually. So we have to think about what is the cause of love and what is love in the first place. That's another one of the reasons why we think dating is difficult in 2020. So that's the mindset, is the defaulter. Is there anything else, Shira, you wanted to add or point out here?
I think you covered it. unless they have anything to add.
Yes.
What's the author of the speed dating book's name?
Rabbi Debo. We'll give it to you here. Aish has a whole bunch of these because they were Aish
Yaakov and
rabbis.
Sue. Deo.
Yaakov and Sue Deo.
Rabbi, I have a question. So I think what I'm hearing basically kind of like the moral of the story between the avoider story and then the defaulter story is you really have to kind of find the right balance between getting that clarity in your head, but then also trusting your gut. Is that fair to say?
Yes, there's a certain element of what we call as faith. I'll throw in a little Torah here, but we understand that marriage and earning money, according to Judaism, is like splitting of the sea for God. Okay, what does that mean? You know, for God to split the sea is not a big deal, but for us, it's a big deal for sure. For God, it's not. Nothing's a big deal for him. But it says in the Talmud, it's as difficult as splitting the sea to get married and to have livelihood. And what it means is for us to jump into the sea and trust that it's going to split. It's like somebody standing behind you, you know, when you play that game and he's like, lean back and I'll catch you, lean back and I'll catch you. So at a certain point, there's an element of trust. You're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to commit to this person for the rest of my life. Or, oh my goodness, I'm going to move to LA to work for this job, which I don't even know is going to last, right? So that's the element of the gut or the faith, which is what we call it, which is after I know that I've done everything right, everything makes sense, I need to move on with an element of faith. Yes, life, in order to be successful, needs you to jump in with what we call an element of faith. Otherwise, you can't do anything. You will never move on in life. You'll always say, okay, I need more time for this. I need more time to think. Life, in order to move on with life, we do have to contemplate, we have to think, but we also have to move. We have to get going. So once I made the measured thought, I should actually move on without too much thought. And that's the element of faith here.
So the cynic, it's a personality or person, you know, consciously or subconsciously, they don't believe that they can find a lasting relationship, like a long-term or forever relationship. In fact, many of them think that it's just a fantasy. Like, you know, there's many people that are negative about marriage and, you know, relationships, and they, a lot of the times, thinks it's not possible. Cynic is usually, unfortunately, a product of failed relationships. So their experiences were tough. So that's why they came to be that way, to be very cynical about dating and relationships. Let's give an example. I'm just giving an example of a girl, Carol. She is now, let's say, I'm just making up, 40. And she's still searching for the right, Mr. Right, a committed relationship. However, she's been already in relationships before. I mean, she's already 40. And she says that she knew from the beginning of those past relationships that she knew they'll never last. But yet she was still in those relationships because she never thought she will find the right person. So she basically spent time with the wrong people just because, I mean, she's like, there's no one else anyway, so I may as well enjoy for now. And she also says, let's say my current boyfriend, he's fun, he's caring, but she also knows it's not gonna work because he has a serious problem with like responsibility. He filed bankruptcy, he has debts, and not only that, but he has no plans of how he's going to, let's say, pay it back or change his spending habits. She knows, let's say, that she would not feel comfortable giving him money or trusting him in that way. So she for sure knows, you know, if I can't lend him money and trust him in that, let alone getting married to a person and sharing my whole life with them, I don't think I can do that. But what happens, you know, a lot of the time cynics believe that this short-term relationship / like companionship relationship, we'll call it, is better than nothing because it's better than risking being alone. For them, the idea of being alone is so bad, so it's better to be with the wrong person than being alone. So that's their mindset. Now, let's put it this way. Choosing a, I would say, short-term relationship or companionship relationship, even though you know it's not going to work, is not going to help you to get to your goal for sure. And definitely not find the right person. It's in fact just going to delay it, because when we're talking about, focus dating, we know that we're focusing on our goals. We're focusing on what we're trying to find, the right person. And if we do that, we don't get into these kind of relationships. So that's something I would say about the, cynic relationship. And I think that what can help someone like that, so what I read also in the book is, when it comes to the idea of focus dating, like we said, or speed dating method, is they get to experience that idea that you learn how to you don't only learn how to get to relationships fast, like speed dating, but the idea is to learn how to cut off the wrong relationships fast and to get into the right relationship fast and not miss the ride while you're dragging in the wrong relationship, and the right person may just come by and you're not even available emotionally. So that's a real problem, and that happens to many people. So I feel like, the cynic is definitely another thing that we've also seen with people that have, consulted with us in different ages. We're in touch with many, many people, way over 30, younger. It's a real problem.
So you don't mind if I throw
please.
I think that there's some examples of cynics that I hear, and I'm sure Shira hears as well. I hear from a lot of guys, all the nice ones that are made for me are taken.
Right.
Right? That's a cynic type of mentality. There's no nice ones because they're all taken. You only need one nice one for you. That's all.
Yeah.
And who says you're not nice? Why do you think you're not nice? Why you don't deserve someone special? You've worked an entire lifetime to get to where you are. Being who you are. Why don't you deserve the best person in the world? You deserve the best person in the world. So that is the mindset that you should have. Everyone gets married eventually. How many people do you know, right, that didn't eventually get married and didn't eventually get in a relationship and didn't eventually have a child? How many people do you know, right? So it's going to happen. So the mindset of the cynic, I think, or the statement that there's no nice ones because the nice ones are already taken and they're all taken on the social platforms, is a mistake. There's many nice ones that are not on the social platforms, and they're very nice and they're just quiet with themselves and they're very normal. They don't make a loud noise. And also, by the way people look on social platforms, on online dating or whatever, they actually look really nice in picture, but when you actually see them, there's like a whole different picture, right? So that's another thing. People know how to Photoshop really well when it comes to, apparently, the most downloaded app for young unmarried teenagers and young professionals is a Photoshop app. I'm joking, right? But I'm just trying to emphasize the idea that we really don't even know, based on what we see as a picture, of what's cute and what's nice and what's real when we actually see it in real life.
And then we're really judging people based on that, and then you might miss the right person, So that's just like one thing that I feel like, when a person is not bringing in the positive vibes about it and really believing in themselves and believing that they deserve and they will find, you just steering yourself away from the right path of really finding. Because how could it be? You can't find someone if you're so negative about and not believing it. So even if that Mr. Right or Mrs. Right, Miss Right will come, you might not even notice them because you're so busy with your own bubble that you created.
And and another example just came to my head is there's no Jewish guys, there's no Jewish girls, there's no
we kept
normal.
hearing it. Look, let me tell you something. We lived in different places. Everywhere we lived, people said the same thing. We didn't live in New York, but we know a lot of people there. And so every time I would talk to, a young professional, early, late 20s, early 30s, it's like there's no normal Jewish, whatever, guys or girls. You live in LA, you hear the same thing. We lived in Oregon. Okay, there I can agree, there's not many, so they were right in that sense. But in Israel, they say everywhere people say that. So that doesn't help much. I feel like it's a lot to do with the internal mindset of, we have to believe that the right person will come. We just have to be prepared. We have to be open-minded enough to be able to see them. It might not be like what I'm imagining right now in my head that they will be. It might be even better. Our imagination is not always, that perfect. We think we know what's good for us, but we don't always know. So it's, I think when it comes to this, being positive towards that really helps,
Yeah, I mean, I normally respond to people that say there's no normal Jewish guys. I'm like, I'm normal, which is like, hey, I got married and there's thousands. What about all the people that got married till now?
Yeah.
They were not, they were just, they were not normal for the person that they got married to. So I think that mindset is also a cynic mindset. We need to remove that. There are good people out there. There's plenty of attractive people out there. You only need one. You don't need 1,000, right? We're not Solomon here, right? You just need one. And that one is going to be beautiful just for you. So, that's, if you have that mindset, it will come. If you don't have that mindset, do you know what happens? There's no normal Jewish girls. All the nice girls are taken. So that mindset literally says, don't even bother. I found a really nice girl. Run away. Because I can't believe it's happening to me. So we need to remove that cynic mindset from our mind and from everything of us. We just need one. And there's one out there. There's thousands out there, actually, but I just need one of them. So that's, I think that's something which needs to change in order to make dating right, in order for us to date the right person in the right way, not put ourselves in a situation where we're dating the wrong person because of my cynic mindset.
This is a little slightly different than what you were saying, but I think it still is relevant.
Sure.
With the topic of like being the cynic, quote unquote, in your dating life. I've had experiences where I've talked to people who have done this or been involved with another person where they've been like this, where they might be feeling cynical about, is this person they're talking to really the right person? And often the way they go about dealing with that is they start to ask questions to their person or bring up conversations that have to do with their cynicism, like kind of trying to bring it up and work on it together to see if the other person can provide some clarity on that. And I feel like that could definitely work, but it might also, if you don't do it in the right way, it might make the other person feel like you're not giving them enough of a chance. So I'm wondering if you have any insight on finding the right balance between those two.
If you believe, and this is the one thing that we're talking about, right? Because there are many aspects here. But if you truly believe that this person is not for you, like Shira was saying, I don't even trust them with my money, right? There's something in that person that says, I really do not think this person's for me. But there's so many nice things about this relationship, then that we have to dig deeper into this, because what are you attracted to that's making you stay? Is it your own feeling of how you feel and how good it makes you feel? Well, that's not enough for a long-term relationship. We'll be speaking about that because that's not love. How I feel is loving myself, not the person in front of me, okay? So we will speak about that, but in general, the point is, we're talking about a cynic who's staying in a relationship because he believes that he knows that this person has real issues, but I've been through very difficult things in the past, and this is way better than anything I've seen.
I think the cynic has to do with self-worth and knowing what we deserve in life. It sounds like that's really what you're saying there, is this person doesn't feel like they're worthy enough to have a partner that is a true partner to them or that they can trust. And that's a very sad mindset. I think a lot of people end up they feel jaded or they feel stressed out by relationships. So they end up like settling in the sense that you're saying with the cynic. They've settled with somebody that they can't even really put their trust in. And I think that just has to do with building up our own self-worth and our own understanding that we are competent and deserving of love and, all of those things.
Yeah. I totally agree to what you said. And I think that this point of self-esteem is something very, very important. A lot of the times when it comes to relationships, people have a lot of problems because they're not even loving themselves. They're not even, they don't even know what they're worth or believing in themselves. So that they get to a lot of problems throughout the relationship, because you cannot love someone until you really love yourself. You cannot appreciate someone if you don't appreciate yourself. You have to have something within yourself to really feel of yourself worth something. I'm not saying being, overdoing it, because that's obviously wrong. We're talking about everything, I think in life should be balanced when it comes to these things, so it can help a person. But I liked your point.
I was gonna say, based off kind of piggybacking off of Natasha was saying, you can have self-worth, but I think sometimes it comes developed through previous experiences, where if you've had experiences where you could say, I'm confident, like I know who I am, I'm worthy of finding someone, but if every single time you feel like you found someone and you feel great and it's going well, then all of a sudden you don't know what happens, I think that that attitude can come from.
Exactly. But then I think when a person feels like that they are in that situation, in like that crossroads, they should seek for advice. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a very good idea when they find, a lot of the times people come and tell us like, listen, I really feel like I'm literally attracting the wrong people all the time. Why for once? I don't have the right girl that I want or the right guy. Like it always happens to me. So it's a lot to do with, I think, personal growth and the way you, project yourself to the outside world. And a lot of, it's not anything that we can go over right now. But I feel like when it comes to specific situations that a person feels like it's just not going, there's a lot of things that they can do. And I think with themselves, it's not only the other person.
I would throw in that it's not only if you have certain issues, like mental issues, it's also who, it could be you're healthy, but it's who you associate with, it's the people that you hang out with. And if you're in an environment which is cynical about everything, then it will reflect even in dating that you'll be cynical. So the cynic not necessarily has to have been through some form of problem or abuse. It says schok v'kalut rosh, laughter and lightheadedness, although Judaism wants us to be happy and laugh. But when it comes to the expense of somebody else, even on a side thing, I'm joking about somebody or somebody I'm dating, that's not good. I need to take people seriously. And that would help me also in not being a cynic, is when I actually take people seriously, when I talk to them seriously. But that's basically it. So we went through so far dating to date, the shaper, the avoider, the defaulter,
and the cynic.
So that's 5 so far. Different mindsets that we think, and based on this book, and we definitely agree with it, otherwise we wouldn't teach it, have really caused us to date with more challenges and make it more difficult. If we have the right mindset in these areas, we would be able to date much, much better, much easier, without any heartache and pain. Yes, Shira, what were you saying?
I wanted to also add, when it comes to the cynic as well, or the avoider, or whatever, any type. We know in different areas in life, when someone wants to be successful in something, let's say in career, they are going to surround themselves, or at least try to get connected to like these successful people to learn their ways. So when it comes to also someone that you can look up to, in their relationship, it's very important to surround yourself with positive people, like we said before. So it's not only friends, but people that you can look up to, their relationship, their marriage, the way they raise their kid, whatever it is, that as a person, the way they react, the way they behave. So you can have a role model, you can have something to strive for, you can have a good example to see and not only see the negative. Because, when it comes to friends, it can affect you. But then if you see good examples as well, that also can affect in many areas.
Did you learn how to speak Hebrew?
Me? Yeah, כן, בטח. את ישראלית?
Hebrew together? כן, אני מבינה, אבל לא מדברת.
רגע, אז את רוצה שנדבר בעברית כאילו?
No, I'm just wondering if, like, when you got married, or did you know Hebrew before, or like, what do you speak in?
Oh, let's talk about.
So I didn't really know Hebrew that well. I knew how to learn Hebrew, so I knew biblical more.
Yeah.
But making it as part of my fluent language, it wasn't. And I did have a lot more Hebrew than most people that I meet in America today, definitely, because I lived in Israel for a while already, and I have family that is Israeli, so I did know a lot more, getting around street Hebrew, but not on the depth that I know it today. I can read anything, I can watch any news, watch everything in Hebrew, talk Hebrew. It's really fluent for me. I might have a small or a large
that became
accent.
way better.
I don't know, ask Shira, but
no, you don't know an accent.
but in general, I speak Hebrew fluently now. Yeah. So we started off. We dated in.
We only spoke in English because like your Hebrew wasn't that good then. It was biblical Hebrew, so it was different. But over the years, living in Israel, and my English was pretty good. So I think we were fine with the language gaps. I have a lot, we could add that at some point because people a lot of times ask when it comes to, dating people from different cultures, which we are, or, different languages, families different. So these are things that I think we'd love to talk about at some point. I mean, tonight we don't have time because we're finished.
I gave her the English accent though over the while. Yeah, so she's grown an English accent.
Yeah, and lost it when we came to the US,
Maybe.
But so that's something that's, we should definitely talk about at some point. I think it can be helpful.
For sure.
Anything else before we say goodnight or Laila Tov in Hebrew? Yeah.
Yes.
So in talking about the cynic in particular, for someone who can be cynical because of how things went in the past in a different relationship, what's your advice in terms of, not going in with that mindset in the next relationship? Like, for example, let's say when you started your last relationship, you really liked these 3 things about this person, but then it turned out to be terrible. And then the next time you meet someone, you notice those same qualities, and then you kind of freak out and make them the same in your head.
That's really the main reason why people have the cynic mentality, is because of previous relationships where it didn't go so well and there was too much drama and so on. So what I would throw in, and I'll leave Shira to say what she thinks, but is don't, and it's based on all what we've been speaking about, is don't enmesh together too quickly. Don't jump into the drama. Get to know the person. If I'm sitting with somebody and I'm just sitting with them for a dinner and I'm getting to know them, okay, that's a good way of getting to know somebody and not having to go through that challenge, and also not having to have that worry, because I know in my mind I'm not doing this for anything else but just to know the person. If something else happens eventually, that's a different story. But right now, I just want to know you. If you walk completely, full-heartedly with that mindset, then I think it will help for a person to date, even after they've been through difficult dating in the past. You go in with a mindset, I'm just sitting to know you, no other agenda. I just want to know who you are. You seem like a nice person. I want to know you. If that's your agenda, which is knowledge, and we're going to be speaking about knowledge in general, what that means to know somebody. But I really want to know who you are. If I go in with that mindset, then why will there be a worry?
No, but also I would say that he mentioned, let's say he figures out, he sees those 3 things or whatever exact thing that he had in the previous relationship. So what I think is, first, like you said, I mean, you can't jump too quickly. I mean, they're not the same people. So it could be in your head, you're building up a lot of things because of your previous relationship. That person have no idea what you're even on about or what you were thinking. So I think giving some time and being a bit more open-minded can help, and trying to work on being positive, trying to see the positivity in that person. Again, we're gonna talk about red flags. So if it is a red flag, you should realize it and then make decisions based on that and whatever. But when it comes to, you're just getting to know each other, you're focusing on knowing them, it's obviously better and try your hardest to not bring your past relationships and emotions into it, because you have to try and be fully available for that person to really give them, the chance. That's what I think. So it's a lot of internal work of positivity, working on it. It's not easy because it's obviously not easy to forget, or when you see certain things, you're like, oh my gosh, you're freaking out. It's the same thing. But I think it's giving chances and, taking some time to figure it out.
Also, I think that you shouldn't give the picture to that person that you're taking this very seriously when you're not. You actually give signs that you really are willing to move this date further than where you really intend, and just because you're being nice, and that's not healthy. Because the other person gets all excited thinking, oh, he's taking the relationship further. And then it could be that you still need time. So, don't jump the gun. Take it slow again in that aspect where you don't give off the impression to the other side. That's something which I've noticed as well in the past, is people are being nice. They get very friendly with someone, even if they don't even think that they're going to be in any way in a relationship with them. It's unfair. If you give off the impression, either if you're a girl and you give off the impression to a guy that you're into them when you're completely not, or a guy that gives the impression to a girl that you're into them when you're completely not. So you have to be very open with that aspect, because you're taking time, that you are taking your time. You're not taking this and not moving it with the language that you share, the way you speak to them. It has to be less dramatic in a way that you actually show that you want to take time on this, on the development of the growth of this relationship.
I really like the idea that you go in without an agenda. I think most people, they go into dating with this big idea of like, he has to be my boyfriend or she has to be my girlfriend right away, and try and I like the idea of just you go into it with this like, I just want to get to know you as another person, and that sounds like such a good way. So thank you. That's a great perspective to have.
That's the way that can save a person from a lot of heartache and really focus. Because if it's really not the type of person you want to be with, you just say goodbye and you're not really too committed. So
I was saying I also like the idea of going in open-minded, meaning someone who you have this idea of who you're attracted to and who you want to date, but going in with an open mind that it could go in for the qualities, not what they look like.
Yeah.
Right.
Many times you hear it with couples, you hear people that are dating and they're like, she is not the number that he always talked about that he wanted, or he isn't. And they still are very attracted to each other, to the personality, to everything else. So when you really meet someone, you can, and you're open-minded enough to be able to do that. Yeah. So you can realize other things that you like about the person that can really attract you. Yeah.
Right. There has to be a certain element of attraction, right? 0 to 5, something between above 5, right? Judaism wants you to first be attracted. You know that we can't get married to somebody unless I've seen them. According to Jewish law, it sounds crazy, but in times of war or difficulty, or if I'm in the Soviet Union and I want to get out so I could get married to someone I think is nice, and then move to the country and get to know them properly in order to leave, or all these things that were done in the past, Judaism says you need to see the person before you marry them.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as not seeing someone before you marry them, because maybe you'll get married and then you'll hurt yourself and you'll hurt them. You need to know if you're attracted to the person, period. You have to know if you're attracted.
Right.
And attraction is a thing. So we need to speak about that too. Physical attraction really is a thing.
Right.
And that's the number one thing you need to look for. The first thing you look for when you date is, am I really attracted to this person?
Right.
So, there has to be an element of physical chemistry and attraction, but there's also
as well as other things.
Things that will help you grow into attraction as well. You can find people that are very good, very attractive, but the minute they start speaking and being, you're like, wow, this nothing to do with what I was thinking. So, you want to make sure that the personality is the aspect of the attraction.
Yeah, it's all about balance. I feel like you gotta have both. You gotta have the attraction as well as the intelligent, everything that can make things work. You can't have only one or only another. It's not gonna work. Right. That's awesome. Wow, guys, thank you so much. We are gonna end now. This was beautiful. Loved hearing your opinions, your voices, your questions. Keep it coming. We're excited for next week. We have a full-on curriculum, so we're hoping to go through everything with you. And if you have, by the way, anything that you would like us to talk about or mention anonymously or whatever, like talk about in the classes, just send us a message, and we can always plug it in somehow and make sure to talk about it.